Wow, happy hour somewhere. It is happy hour. Hope everybody's having a lovely Friday. I hope everybody is staying safe in these trying times. COVID is still, unfortunately, surging in many parts of the country. Seems to be going down a little bit in the Northeast where I am. I am wearing my Status Coup fleece. There you go. Couldn't get it in the camera angle. Sitting down, but hopefully you see it. There you go. Please smash that like button. Share this live stream. The more people that press the like button, the more people that will see this very live stream. It's 4:00 Eastern time. We are going to do kind of I guess you could just say a casual thing. I do have a little, I don't know if you can see that, spirits for the occasion. To tell you the truth, I have not sampled this whiskey in quite some time. I've been a little busy working on this Flint story that we broke this week. So I have not consumed any spirits or liquid courage recently. But I figured, you know what? This channel is very serious. The corruption in this country is very serious. So maybe we should just have a nice, fun live stream, right? Maybe we should just have a nice, fun live stream. So I'm going to put a little in this glass. I'm not going to get crazy, just a little bit to get us through the broadcast. I think that's enough to start. Maybe a little more. Hold on. But I'm not going to get drunk. I promise. I think. We'll see. So, happy hour and haters. We have some comments. From the week that we've saved. So I'm going to respond to some comments. Also want to talk to commenters live. So I will read super chats first and foremost. So get those super chats in. We really appreciate your support in the super chat. So we're going to read, is that whiskey any good? Yeah, it's very good, actually. Kings Creek Black Label, honey flavored Tennessee sour mash whiskey. Honey flavored Tennessee sour mash whiskey. They are not. Jordan is not a pilot. He doesn't work drunk. That's correct. We're not sponsored by them. I'm not making any money. This is just whiskey I enjoy. So there you go. What is your drink cue? Is that straight Kentucky whiskey? This is not straight. It's honey flavored. I don't like straight. I like Kentucky. I like maple. I like honey. I like fire. All that. Straight. I like, sometimes I'll have straight Jack. Didn't vote for Joe. I saw you with Bree and now I've subscribed. It's incredible. And I really appreciate, by the way, just to have a rundown of this week's events. I went on with Rising, The Hill Rising, with Ryan Grimm and Robbie Suave, I think his name is. So I appreciate them having me on. I went on with Ring of Fire, I think that interview is going to air next week. I went on with Brianna Joy Gray of Bad Faith, which I really appreciate her having me on about this Flint story that we broke this week. Kyle Kalinske, I don't know if he covered the Flint story, but I know he aired a clip from my Marianne Williamson interview. So I really, really appreciate Kyle doing that. I went on with Charlie LaDuff of his podcast today, the No BS News Hour. Of course, the power in my house went out right before I was supposed to go on with Charlie. You got to love that. The power went out literally right before I was supposed to go on with with Charlie today. So I had to do it from my phone. Didn't look so hot, but I hope I got the point across. 222. I went on a radio show. I'm going on tentatively with Michael Moore's podcast next week, Rumble, to talk about the Flint story we just broke. So a lot of things are going on because of all the really, really kind independent folks that had me on this week. Status Coup has gotten a boost. We've gotten folks from Brianna Joy Gray's podcast, from Rising, from Kyle's channel, who have never seen Status Coup before because YouTube generally hides us. that they have now come over and subscribed. So welcome to our new subscribers. I really appreciate you subscribing. This is going to be a little bit lighter, just interacting with the audience. Have like a topic or two, but it's kind of going to be more casual. Let me take my first sample. God, that's damn good. It's damn good. Love it. So I want to start. Oh yeah, Tina's been on this week. It's been a really busy week. Honestly, it's been really busy, but in a good way. And all of this, Colin, I don't know if you have the story, but if we could just show the Flint story before we move on to showing comments, reacting to things. I just want to remind people on Monday, myself and Charlie LaDuff, or Charlie LaDuff and I, as my wife would correct me, we broke a major story. It was in The Guardian, called the headline revealed the Flint water poisoning charges that never came to light. If you haven't read the story yet, definitely go to my Twitter. It's at the top, pinned at the top of my Twitter page. It's in The Guardian. I have reached out to Democracy Now! To come on. Haven't heard back. I've reached out to a couple others to come on. Haven't heard back. So if you know other independent outlets with bigger audiences, please encourage them either to have me on or to cover it themselves. In a nutshell, despite what the media has told you, the Flint water crisis is not over. That's why I have stayed on it, because in my view, when an American city is poisoned by its government, and then there's a massive cover-up of that poisoning, and then the residents are left to slowly die, I have a problem with that as a journalist and as kind of a decent human being. So that's why I've stayed on it. Hold on. Do we have noise? There you go. I was waiting for that. Colin, do it one more time. I love it. I love it, love it, love it. So we got the sound effect and everything for whenever I drink my spirit. Yes, I did ask Katie Halper to come on. Haven't heard back yet. I've asked Nina Turner to come on here. So I'm waiting to hear back from her folks. Yes, Bo, the fifth column, covered the Flint story, so I really appreciate it. Reached out to Crystal to have me on. Haven't heard back yet, so not knocking them. Obviously, everybody's busy, but I'd love to get on with Breaking Points to discuss the story. I'd love to get on with Katie Halper I'd go on with anybody to discuss the story. Marianne Williamson also, I was on her podcast last week. That aired. So a lot of great stuff going on. But just to kind of crystallize it before we get to reading comments, super chats open, by the way. Keep those super chats coming. I'll read those too. I'll read those first, actually. I want to explain the significance of this story if you haven't read it and why it's really important, not just about Flint, but just the corruption in this country. What Charlie and I exposed in this Guardian story, and if you could put it up again, Colin, what Charlie and I exposed in this Guardian story is there was major financial fraud. Yes, I did reach out to Tom Hartman. There was major financial fraud. Decisions that were made to make banks a lot of money, to make landowners a lot of money, to make government officials money. And that financial fraud led to the poisoning of Flint. And that hasn't gotten a lot of coverage, but it wasn't just like, oh, some government officials made some mistakes and poisoned a city. As we broke, yes, I've also asked Rational National to come on. I haven't heard back. What we broke was that there was major financial fraud that led to the water poisoning. We broke that a set of prosecutors and investigators from 2016 to 2018, so the original Flint water prosecution team, they were building an aggressive racketeering case. Racketeering is known as RICO. RICO charges were created in the 1970s to go after organized crime and the mafia. So there was an aggressive racketeering case, and those RICO charges were going to go against government officials in Michigan, as well as other officials, for a scam financial deal that led to Flint using the Flint River in the first place, that led to the poisoning of the residents of Flint. What we exposed was the current Attorney General, Dana Nessel, who is a Democrat. She's on MSNBC and CNN these days, talking about saving democracy and January 6th. But what we exposed was the current attorney general, a Democrat, when she came in office, she cleaned house. She fired the prosecutors and investigators that were building that racketeering case for that financial fraud. She put in her own prosecutors, and they stopped. As far as we know from our reporting, they buried it. They stopped following the financial fraud that led to the water crisis. Not only did they stop following the RICO case that was on the verge of, the charges were on the verge of being charged, but they also dropped separate financial charges that had already been filed. So again, follow the money. Why is it that one investigation before the current attorney general fired them, why is it that that investigation was building an aggressive financial racketeering case against state officials for financial fraud that led to the poisoning of this city, and this attorney general did nothing with it? Why is it that the first investigation was had already charged state officials with financial fraud for separate charges, not RICO, separate charges? This attorney general came in, she dropped those charges. So definitely read the story. It's at the top of my Twitter. Retweet the tweet, like the tweet, share it, encourage others. And I'll just say, again, please, I'd love to come on Breaking Points with Crystal. I'd love to go on the Rational National with David Dole. I'm going on with Mike from the Humanist Report next week. I would love to go on Democracy Now! I would go on just about any show right now to get this important story out there. Because again, it's not just about the city of Flint. It is about corruption. It is about financial fraud that led to people dying, that people are still slowly dying in the city of Flint. And for those that say it's not just Flint, Jordan, there's other cities too, I'm with you. But I can only cover so much as one person and one news outlet. And to me, why Flint is important, if no one is held accountable for the poisoning of Flint, if no one is held accountable for this financial fraud, that's the playbook, and it's coming to a city near you. Your governor won't blink twice. Your mayor won't blink twice. Your city council won't blink twice. Financial people won't blink twice, because again, if you read our story, Wall Street was also allegedly involved in this financial fraud that led to this poisoning of the city of Flint. You had JP Morgan Chase and Wells Fargo issued bonds that were allegedly fraudulent that led to the poisoning of Flint. So please, please share the story. And I would thank you so much to Brianna, to The Hill, to Ring of Fire, to Charlie LaDuff, and everybody else that's had me on this week. I look forward to going on with the Humanist Report next week, Michael Moore's podcast. And I hope, if you can't have me on, I hope Breaking Points and others will at least cover the story that we broke. Because independent media needs to boost independent reporting. It's as simple as that. Brianna Joy Gray and I covered it. We need to collaborate, independent media, whether you're commentators or journalists. I would love to have an independent media network instead of everybody going live at the same time, everybody posting 200 videos a day, a lot of it's similar content. How about a progressive news network? We don't have to all agree on all things, but collaboration and organized progressive media network, I think, could do serious, serious damage to counter the corporate propaganda that we see in the cable news and other corporate media. So thank you. Let's move on. Before I get to comments, I just wanted to play this clip and smash that like button. We already got almost 200 people watching. Press that like button, share this live stream. The more people that press like, the more people that share, the more people that will see this. I want to play this clip from Biden's press secretary, and then we're going to get to comments and questions, because it tells you everything you need to know. Everything you need to know. This is Jen Psaki on The View.
My advice to everyone out there who's frustrated, sad, angry, pissed off, feel those emotions, go to a kickboxing class, have a margarita, do whatever you need to do this weekend, and then wake up on Monday morning, we got to keep fighting. And what that means, Lindsay, is we have to keep talking to members about federal legislation. That's essential. That's something that can be permanent, that can make sure people's rights are protected. But we also need to make sure people are educated in states across the country about what their rights are, how they can vote, when they can vote, how to request an absentee ballot. There's a lot we need to do on that front, and that's going to rely on the energy and the anger of that activism as well.
Yeah. So if you are a working class person that's working 9-10 hours at your plant or Amazon or a restaurant or a bar, if you're lucky, a lot of you are working 12-13 hours. If you're a working class person working 2 to 3 jobs, if you're a working class person working 1 job and then driving Uber or Lyft, if you're a working class person that is a single parent who is working a long 9 to 10 hour job and then taking care of the kids, if you're a working class person that is immunocompromised and can't really go out right now because of COVID, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Just go to a kickboxing class, drink a margarita, come back to fight on Monday. And, I got some criticism because I tweeted this out criticizing her. Like, are you so out of touch with like the working class? I don't know about you. Like, I'm fortunately not struggling like a lot of people I interview are, but I don't know a lot of the people I interview that work at Amazon or are striking right now at Kroger's, or the residents I know in Flint, or just straight up working people around the country that have time or money, by the way, to go to a kickboxing class. Maybe they have time to drink a glass or two, but like drink a margarita over the weekend, put your feet up. Like, not that the Republican Party is particularly in touch with the working class, but like when she makes these statements, I don't think she realizes, yes, this is happy hour. This is happy hour. Colin, if we could get the This is happy hour. Thank you very much. We'll get the timing right because we want to get the timing right every glass I drink. And for those that came late, honey flavored Tennessee sour mash whiskey. I'm a whiskey man. This is honey sour. But what's amazing to me about that is she genuinely, I don't think she means it like negatively or to be out of touch, but I think she really doesn't understand that most working class people barely have time to go to the bathroom. Most working class people barely have time at this point to like for a half hour a day to watch like Netflix if they can afford Netflix. Most working class people don't really get much of a break. So when she's saying like, oh, to you folks that are discouraged, Manchin and Sinema just buried changing the filibuster. Manchin and Sinema have basically blocked Biden's whole agenda, which, by the way, Biden has allowed because he hasn't gone after them because Biden is really a Republican and doesn't particularly care all that much about, and he's not uber passionate about any of the provisions in Build Back Better. So why would he go after Manchin and Sinema if he doesn't particularly passionately care about these things? But it's just beyond out of touch what she said. And again, to be fair, could you find a kickboxing class that isn't too expensive? Yeah, probably. You could probably find a kickboxing class that isn't too expensive. Is making your own margarita too expensive? I guess you could, what do you need? Tequila, salt, a lime, I guess. But it's the whole point. Like, she doesn't realize that most people don't have the time, or most people, after working 10 or 11 hours for a shitty paying job, which barely gives you any benefits, if it gives you benefits, just want to go home, put their feet up if they can. If they get a little time for themselves, watch a mindless show. They don't have time or energy to go work out. So I just wanted to point out that clip. She pointed out margarita. I'm a whiskey man. So let's move on. I haven't drank alcohol over 7 years. Sometimes I fantasize about the taste. By the way, that's a very good point. If you're drinking along, you don't have to drink alcohol. You could drink tea, kombucha, which I guess technically has some alcohol in it. Tea, kombucha, coffee, water, coconut water. If you want to eat some candies with some medicinal cannabis, whatever your flavor is. I happen to be drinking alcohol, but you could drink whatever you want. So no pressure. We are not digitally peer pressuring anybody. Colin, can we start? And by the way, keep super chats are welcome because I will read super chats first. But I want to address some comments that we just went back through videos to find. Colin, can we start? We'll just go in order with what I sent you. Let's start with the holy shit comment, if you have that. So this was a comment, and I saw a lot of these kinds. Rad Norio. Holy shit. You guys got recommended to me on YouTube. The algorithm actually chose to place you on my timeline for the first time in ages. Given for some reason I'm no longer subscribed. I can't tell you how many comments I saw. I looked at Brianna Joy. If you can keep that up, Colin. I can't tell you how many comments I saw under Brianna Joy Gray's video, under Rising. I went on the hills, Rising. How many comments I saw that said, Jordan, I've been subscribed to you and Status Coup for like a year or two. I never see your videos. You're never recommended. I literally, Brianna actually sent me a comment where somebody said they literally had to type in Status Coup and it came up Status Couple. They couldn't even find Status Coup on YouTube. So this comment with this person, Radnorio, who found us, who finally, after, what was it on? Ages, they said. Finally, our video was recommended to them. I have no idea why it has taken this long. We have 125,000 subscribers. So thank you to our new subscribers who just subscribed from Brianna Joy, Bad Faith channel or Secular Talk. Welcome, welcome, welcome. If you watch at our homepage of Status Coup, you'll see our 2021 recap video, which shows all our on-the-ground reporting. We're having a good time now, folks, in studio. But Status Coup, if you don't know, we're one of the few outlets that actually goes out. We cover a lot of things on the ground. I've been to Flint nearly 20 times in 5 years. We cover protests. I was on the campaign trail in 2016 and 2020, covering Bernie, Trump, Bernie again in 2020. We've covered extensively. We were just a couple months ago in Iowa on the front lines of the John Deere strikes, interviewing John Deere workers on the picket lines. We've covered over the summer, last summer, we went on a 2-week reporting tour. We covered exploding homelessness throughout the country, mass evictions that were happening despite the federal eviction moratorium. There were evictions happening throughout the country throughout the pandemic because there was more loopholes in the eviction moratorium than a roller coaster. We went to Louisville, Kentucky. We interviewed Breonna Taylor's aunts because that's another cover-up, her murder and the police cover-up. We were there interviewing Breonna Taylor's aunts. We went to West Virginia, where we dug and actually investigated Joe Manchin and spoke with actual West Virginia residents. So we actually go places. And I'll tell you what, it costs a lot of money to do that. No disrespect to my colleagues in independent media who are commentators and are mostly, from home. I love all of them. For us, we just have that extra overhead because we have to afford flights, hotels, rent a car, equipment. My cameraman, a lot of costs. Just our broadcasting unit called Live View. That's what we use when we go out on the road. Just our broadcasting unit costs $700, $800 a month, even if we don't go on the road with the data and access to the Live View server. So definitely. We've also this week, thank the Lord, gotten 50 new signups for paid membership. That is our main model. That's how we fund our on-the-ground reporting. So definitely, if you can, sign up, statuscoup.com/join. We're going to be doing our members only call next week. So we're going to be doing our members only call, our once a month Zoom call next week with our members. So statuscoup.com/join. sign up as a Status Coup member for as low as $5 a month. It makes a huge, huge difference. You get to join us on our members call. We also post separate behind the scenes videos. Let me take one more swig before our next comment. I'll also read some super chats. Colin, if you could save the super chats. Oh, God, that's good. I'm telling you, honey sour whiskey is from the gods. Let me, before these super chats go, let me read them. Lost in the fog of war, $5. I like coffee and a bowl of Northern Lights. Whatever floats your boat. I love coffee too. I don't know if I've been in the Northern Lights, but a bowl of Northern Lights sounds wonderful. 1-2, $5. I also like bowl of Northern Lights and coffee. Seems like, hey, where's my invite for this bowl of Northern Lights? Thank you. And again, you don't have to drink with me. You could have tea, coffee, water, whatever floats your boat, cannabis, whatever floats your boats. Let's have some fun. Colin, can we go to the next comment? This is from Gracie Allen. Gracie Allen, every video is negative, so I no longer watch you. Gracie. And I love that name. Respectfully, because I don't want to get in fights with commenters or anything. Every video is negative, so I no longer watch. Well, it really depends what you're looking for these days, right? It really depends what you're looking for these days if you're a viewer of news or anything else, right? Because we all need an escape. Of course, we all need an escape. This country is steeped. We live in the United Corporations of America, right behind me. We have a system of legalized bribery. Corporations, plutocrats, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Bill Gates, all of them. And of course, the CEOs of Kroger and Walmart and Target and the fast food industry, all of them have hijacked whatever form of democracy we have. I'm a white guy, so I don't want to diminish the importance of voting rights. Of course, voting rights is super important for Black people, for Latinos, for indigenous people, for the very oppressed groups of people that literally we white people, let's keep it real, have had a head start for forever. But it's not only, the importance isn't only whether you have the right to vote. The importance is, okay, if we have the right to vote, does our vote actually matter? And in this country, I would argue, no. If you paid attention to the Harvard study, the Princeton study from 2014, it actually concluded America is not a democracy, it's an oligarchy. And that popular public sentiment, so when there's overwhelming popular sentiment, that popular sentiment almost never ends up in legislation. But when the elites want something, when the donors want something, when the wealthy want something, that ends up getting implemented into legislation almost 50% of the time. So the majority wants something, almost never does it get implemented. When the elites want something, over half the time it does. So I would argue we don't really have a democracy. So all this huffing and puffing, not that January 6th wasn't a big deal, not that the Republicans aren't trying to stop Black people and others from voting. Of course they are. But let's also be very deliberate when we talk about democracy, because generally democracy or representative democracy actually means you actually the will of the people is represented most of the time. In the United Corporations of America, it's the opposite. But getting back to Gracie Allen's comment, if you could put it back up, Colin. So she says, every video is negative, so I no longer watch you. Well, with all due respect, do you want me to lie to you? Like, do you want me to come on and just give good news stories about, like the Make-A-Wish Foundation, which is wonderful? So I don't really know what and I'm not, I want you to watch Gracie Allen. I'm not trying to be disrespectful at all. I respect your comment. But do you want me to lie to you? Do you want me to tell you that the water in Flint is safe 8 years later? Do you want me to lie to you and tell you, yes, people are going to be held accountable? Do you want me to lie when I'm on the ground interviewing Amazon workers and not tell you about the exploitation of Amazon workers? Do you want me to not tell you or ask Amazon workers that I've interviewed about the fact that literally Amazon workers making $18 an hour in New York City are sleeping in their cars and are homeless because in New York City, they can't afford a place to live? Do you want me to lie? And, when I'm on the ground interviewing John Deere workers striking or interviewing Starbucks workers who are trying to unionize, because a couple months ago, we were on the ground in Iowa covering the John Deere strikes. And then we were on the ground in Buffalo interviewing the Starbucks workers when they were trying to unionize. They fortunately were successful. Do you want me to dress it up and make it seem like they're not being exploited, that their working conditions are just wonderful in these Amazon factories? Would you like me to not report over the summer when I was in Staten Island covering the Amazon workers trying to unionize, that literally workers were being carted off on stretchers because of the sweltering heat in the warehouses, because one of the richest people on earth, Jeff Bezos, can't provide working air conditioning? So I don't mean any disrespect. Hey, maybe this channel's not for you. Some people, I totally respect it. You might want to escape the negativity. You might want to escape the truth of what's going on. You might want to escape the truth of the United Corporations of America. And trust me, for me, I suffer from depression. I've suffered from depression my whole life. You think this shit's exciting for me? I can't tell you how many times I've been on the ground reporting in Flint, covering. I mean, over the summer, we went on the ground in 2 weeks. Philadelphia, Ohio, Louisville, Kentucky, West Virginia. Literally, we went on the ground. We were covering rampant homelessness, more homelessness exploding during this pandemic, people being thrown out, evictions during this pandemic. Breonna Taylor, I spoke with her aunts about this cover-up and how the media has totally covered it up. Then we went to West Virginia, literally talking to people that are dirt poor, that Joe Manchin is quote-unquote representing. It's depressing for me. Flint, I've literally sat on porches talking to children who cannot recite the alphabet anymore. I'm not being dramatic. I've spoken with adults who I've gotten to know over 5 years. They're getting sicker and sicker. One of my best friends in Flint, a source of mine, now has cancer. No family history. She's 40. So trust me, I'm with you. But don't stop watching because it's negative. We're not going to get to the positive if we don't wake more people up to what's really going on. Again, most people are not lacking compassion. Most people have no idea what's going on. That's true. Jordan, if you're depressed, stay off the juice. This is the first juice I've had in quite some time, so don't worry. Don't worry. And yes, you can purchase those wonderful shirts. Most people are not lacking compassion. Most people have no idea what's going on. Colin, can you come on for a second and tell people? Oh, statuscoup.com/store. Statuscoup.com/store, where you could get that and other awesome Status Coup merchandise. United Corporations of America shirt, the quote shirt, the fossil fuckers. Hey, I want that swag. Colin, can you come on for a second? If possible. Sorry to blow up your spot. How come I haven't gotten any of these shirts?
That's a good question. You gotta ask for them.
Because I have the Status Coup. What is this?
Yeah, we should definitely.
It's not a hoodie.
Some, yeah.
But how am I supposed to sell these shirts if I don't have any to wear? I think it's a fair point. But they could go to statuscoup.com/store, correct?
Yep, statuscoup.com/store. That's our T-Mill store, and that's we got the section with those 3 shirts with the different quotes, and we also have some regular shirts with the plain Status Coup logo, if that's more your style and all that.
And I just want to point out to the audience, when you see the price, you might be like, Jordan, stop ripping us off. The T-Mill, where our store is, Colin, I don't want to speak out of turn, but these are sustainable. It's made from sustainable sources. As a result, it's a little bit more expensive, but we actually moved it down to the lowest possible price point So like we're basically not making anything really off of these shirts, but it's a little more expensive just because what the product they use is from sustainable sources. Do I have that right?
Yeah, and it's a little bit nicer quality than like some of your run-of-the-mill ones, so that's another reason for the price. But yeah, we have if you guys have ever used any of these sites or know about it, basically the amount of money you can kind of choose how much you make on the shirt and stuff. And we literally have it dragged down as low as the website will let us. So, because it's mainly just so you guys can get this product, because we're not going to be, making bank off of the shirts. It's just sort of a cool thing, especially for people who have been asking about this type of stuff to have for themselves.
Awesome. Let's send me some. I'll pay full price.
Oh.
But I can't sell the shirts if I don't have them. Fair point. All right. Thanks, Colin. So, let's I just got another super chat. Let's read that. Michael Williams, $5. Jordan, honest opinion, do you think there will be much of a country left in 10 years? Wow, that's a profound question. Let me pour a little bit more for that question. I don't want to be irresponsible, but that's a pretty big question. Do I think there will be much of a country left in 10 years? Did you just hear my wife? She said, "Hey, I don't want you drinking more." That's funny. So I think the country will still be here in 10 years, like the physical country. Do I think in 10 years there'll be much of a country left? To be honest with you, I think, and I don't want to give empty promises, but I do believe that we are headed. I think it's one of those things where, like, at some point, whatever you call it, the working class, the people who have literally been exploited. I'm talking all people. So poor, formerly middle class, now working class, the poor. I think at a certain point, people are going to feel we have nothing left to lose, and I think you're going to see some type of revolt. I don't know if it's going to be in the form of a general strike. I wish, but I think at a certain point, when it's just the same old record spinning every election cycle, we have marketing each election cycle. This is the most important election of our lifetime. This is the most important election of our lifetime. This is the most important election of our lifetime. And you basically just get the same shit over and over again, whether it be the Democrats who take over and negotiate against themselves, come up with excuses like we can't do anything because an unelected parliamentarian says so, or Democrats get power and say we can't do anything because we only have a 50-50 majority, despite the president could actually use the bully pulpit to go after the obstructionists, Manchin and Sinema. When you have a Democratic Party that, the president has the power right now to take action on marijuana, on student loan debt, on health care, and a whole host of other things through executive action. When you continually have that, and of course, when you have a Republican Party that when they take office, it's just they do stuff for the wealthy and more stuff for like culture war. So it's not like the Democratic Party is the only problem here. The Republican Party too. I don't want to get it twisted. At a certain point, using your point over 10 years, at a certain point, you got to think there will be a revolt. I don't endorse violence because I don't actually think it would work. But at a certain point, we have seen over the last 2 years, there is the potential of mass mobilization in this country. We saw it with the George Floyd protests. You saw millions of people throughout this country mass mobilize. You saw millions of people, younger people, older people, white people, black people, Hispanics, Asians, disabled, across the gamut. They were on the streets, in that case, for racial justice. Just imagine if even 1/10, I failed math, but 1/10 of the people that were on the ground for the George Floyd protests started taking economic actions, started boycotting big box stores, started shifting away from corporate banking to credit unions, started supporting and getting involved with these worker strikes. So it wasn't just the workers that were striking, but people that don't work at these companies where the workers are striking were putting their skin in the game and boycotting those companies. Somebody just mentioned 200 million in India striked. I think, I don't want to give people false promise because I don't think we're in a great position as a country. But I do think at a certain point there will be a revolt. I actually do believe that a lot of people that might be not as progressive as us, might be more neoliberal, might have voted for Obama twice or Hillary Clinton, Biden. I think even they are kind of getting sick of this shit. I think even they are saying, wait a minute, okay, we got rid of Trump. I was down with that. We had to get rid of Trump, but like, Build Back Better, what happened to that? Why do we have a president in fetal position? Why do we have a president and a party that just uses every excuse in the book for not doing anything? So to answer your question, will the country exist in 10 years? Yes. I think before then, you might have an economic revolt on your hands. We saw Occupy Wall Street a little over a decade ago. I think there could be something similar than that, hopefully a lot more organized with leadership. Because I think one of the problems with Occupy Wall Street, I get the idea behind it. We're all leaders. You need leaders. You need leaders of these movements. So that's, hope that answered your question. Dunbar, 5D, $5. I really enjoyed your conversation with Brianna Joy Gray. Do you think with all the egos on the left, the idea of some sort of umbrella campaign is really possible? And by the way, again, I really appreciate Brianna Joy Gray having me on Bad Faith. She posted a video yesterday where we discussed kind of independent media, the potential of independent media coming together, different hosts, different personalities coming together as a network. Today, she posted another video specifically on the big story I broke this week on the Flint water crisis and cover up. So thank you to Brianna. I really appreciate that because that's what it's going to take for Status Coup and for my reporting to get out, because YouTube has been doing everything possible to suppress it. It's going to take other hosts and bigger channels to boost it. Not for me, again, not just for me and not just to grow Status Coup, but these stories are important. I know I'm just speaking directly to, commentators and people with channels that kind of follow, they do more analysis and commentary. I know that, it's human nature. Like, it's hard to pay attention to stuff that happened years ago, like Flint. And it doesn't necessarily, it's not like a sexy topic on YouTube that's going to get you a lot of views. But I think if you're an independent media host and particularly if you're progressive, if you care about, forget progressive, if you care about humanity and the working class, if you're in a position, particularly with a bigger audience, to boost reporting from smaller audiences, because I can tell you, we have been throttled like you would not believe by YouTube. YouTube does not like this channel. YouTube, we already showed you one comment from a viewer saying, holy Colin, do you have that first comment again? If I could just show it, if people miss it. Holy shit, you guys got recommended to me on YouTube. The algorithm actually chose to place you on my timeline for the first time in ages. Do you think it's a coincidence? I'm genuinely asking you folks. Do you think it's a coincidence that one of the only outlets, independent outlets, that goes out, covers poison communities, goes out, covers strikes, union drives, Amazon workers, interviewing homeless Amazon workers, goes out and does reporting tours, interviewing homeless people, which we did over the summer, goes out, interviews people being evicted during a pandemic, even though they're supposed to have federal protections against evictions, goes out and keeps Breonna Taylor's murder in the news. You think it's a coincidence that channel, people don't see their videos? Our videos rarely get recommended? Do you think that's a coincidence? Again, it's not. It's not a coincidence. This has been going on for a long time with this channel. So that's why I am so appreciative to Brianna Joy Gray, Rising. Ryan Grimm had me on. I'm hoping to, Crystal could have me on or at least cover our story. Would love to go on with just about anybody. And, at the end of the day, you don't have to necessarily it's not just about Flint. This is about what kind of country do we live in? Do we live in a country that if people are poisoned, our government covers it up and then leaves them to slowly die? Everybody should care about that. And you know what? Sometimes you got to cover things, even if it won't get a ton of views because YouTube's algorithm is throttling it. Because I could tell you, just the Flint stuff we did this week, that got really throttled. Like, people didn't even get notifications for the videos we put out about this Flint story. So it ain't a conspiracy, folks. Google, which owns YouTube, doesn't want this stuff out there. It's just the truth. But to answer your question, do you think all the egos on the left, the idea of some sort of umbrella campaign is really possible? I do. And by the way, it's not just egos on the left. People have egos, period. But at the end of the day, let's just for argument's sake say Kyle Kalinske, Crystal Ball, Brianna Joy Gray, Katie Halper, Ryan Grimm, I don't know, Tim Black, David Dole, Mike from the Humanist Report, Jamarl Thomas, Lee Camp, Graham Elwood. I mean, I'm probably forgetting some folks, but let's just, for argument's sake, say everybody was starting brand new right now. And of course, that's not true because Kyle's been doing the grind for over a decade and he's worked hard and he's built a channel with nearly 1 million subscribers and he deserves it. And he should be well over 1 million by now. He's been suppressed by YouTube too. And Crystal with Sagar, they've worked hard. But let's just say, for argument's sake, everybody was just starting at the same time. I believe all of these people, and some might have might not agree on all things, but I think all of these people, and again, I might be forgetting some people too, so it's no disrespect if I left anyone out. I think all of these people generally have the same goal. We're not just interested in gabbing and talking to gab and talk. I'm not just interested in going out on the ground and reporting to show you what's going on. We're interested in actually affecting change. We're interested in actually organizing change. We're interested in actually, as best as we can, peel back the corruption. We're interested in seizing power for a progressive worldview, right? So we're not just, none of us, I hope, are only interested in like growing our Twitter following or growing just a business. We're interested in actually affecting change in this country, in this world. So to me, just like politics and just like movements and just like what the Starbucks workers are doing and the Amazon workers are doing and workers all over this country have been doing for the last year, they're organizing. So in terms of independent media, how are we supposed to compete with a well-oiled corporate media echo chamber? Let me repeat, a well-oiled corporate media echo chamber. How are we supposed to compete with that if we're all living on our own separate islands? As much as I have built Status Coup for 4 years now, I would gladly forego the identity of Status Coup to join a broader network. It's not to say our reporting and our show would not be called Status Coup. I just hope you see what I'm saying. Like, I would gladly do a trade-off where we weren't just on our own YouTube channel or our own website to be part of a broader network. Because to me, if you have that broader network where shows and hosts are collaborating, where if I break an important story or I'm on the ground somewhere, it's getting boosted by other shows and other personalities. If other commentators, let's say, have a really hot debate or they have a really important take or powerful take on something, that's being boosted elsewhere by others, where there's panel discussions of hosts. To me, that is A, it's a lot more organized. B, you have a lot better chance of reaching new audiences because we don't want to just preach to the choir. We don't want to only reach people who already agree with us. We want to wake more people up. I don't care if they're conservative, neoliberal, non-voters, don't care. You don't just want to get people in your own tribe. So that's why, do I think people could put aside their egos? I would hope. I mean, listen, I could see and again, I'm just I don't know. I've never spoken with Kyle Kulinski, but, well, I was on their podcast, but I've never spoken to him about this. But I could understand from, like, let's say Kyle Kulinski's point of view. Well, I've been busting my ass for over a decade. I've built my channel to nearly 1 million views. Nearly 1 million subscribers. So, why would I want to? I busted my ass. Why would I want to join this? I could totally get that. But I think there's ways of all of us coming together under one umbrella, a network. You have time slots for each person, so we're not all going live at the same time. We're not all releasing videos at the same time. Collaboration where people could come on each other's shows. You have panels, you have debates. You could even have comedy, education, progressive education, because there's some people like More Perfect Union and Means TV that do more educational stuff. That doesn't mean individual personalities or channels can't have their own websites or their own whatever. It just means, to me, how do you go against the corporate echo chamber if you're all cannibalizing one another? Everybody right now is cannibalizing one another. There's too much content out there. If you're a viewer, you're probably getting blown up all day with different channels and different notifications. I call it, I hope you're not eating, a digital diarrhea. There's just too much. So to answer your question, do I think people would put aside their egos? I do, because I think at the end of the day, we're all in this, at least for similar reasons, and that's to affect change. And you have to start getting smart. And you have to have a strategy to affect change. And to me, a more well-organized, independent media space that is a network and people are together, that is powerful. And frankly, I think you might even have some people with bigger pockets that might want to fund it. Now, I'm not going to just say, yeah, let's take money from Jeff Bezos to fund that. Of course not. But you know what? Listen, if a Pierre Omidyar who funds The Intercept, who Glenn Greenwald himself said did not interfere with his work and never interfered with editorial, if a billionaire like Pierre Omidyar wanted to fund it, I'm not going to be so pure to say, no, I'm not taking your money. At the end of the day, take it from me, who's been scratching quarters together to fund on-the-ground reporting. You need funding. It's just the truth. But the true measure is not if you get funding. The true measure is, does your message change? Does your commentary change? Does your reporting change? And as far as I could see, I don't think anyone that we're talking about that would be part of something like that would ever change their views, how they present themselves based on who was funding it. Obviously, you need to be selective in some regards. I'm not Chevron. I'm not joining something Chevron is funding or Goldman Sachs is funding or Pfizer is funding, but to a smaller degree, yeah, we gotta grow. And I think we should come together at some point. Keep pressing that like button. We almost have 300 people watching. Keep those super chats coming. Let me read a couple other super chats. Joshua Jenkins, $10. The government inspires more violence against politicians and donors. The government inspires more violence against politicians and donors. You know what? Honestly, I'm never going to endorse violence against anyone. I don't think that's the way. I don't think it's effective. I don't think it's going to create any change. But I do understand to a certain degree. Before I continue, I need some help. Love it. Listen, I remember in 2016, I'll never forget this, because there was really a narrative that all of Trump's support was based on racism. And there was certainly an element of it. But I interviewed a lot of people that ended up supporting Trump that used to vote Democrat. I interviewed a lot of people that shifted over to Trump that literally worked in factories. I remember at one rally in Pennsylvania specifically, I interviewed a man, I think maybe in his 30s or 40s, and he started crying when I interviewed him. This is when I was at the Young Turks, because his friends were getting laid off. His friends were getting laid off at other factories. He worked at a steel mill, and he felt the pressure because there had already been layoffs at his steel mill, and he was worried about his job. And he was really, really worried. His child had a pre-existing condition, and he's really worried about getting laid off. And I asked him, well, I could completely understand that, but what about Donald Trump makes you think he's the real deal? Like he's going to save your job or bring back other jobs, because his record in his companies, at least, was outsourcing. He's paid off politicians. And he basically just said, we need something different because the politicians we've had haven't done it. So I'm willing to try something different. I don't know if that person, I mean, when I talked to him, he was very calm and civil, and nothing about him came off as he's voting for Trump because of racism or anything like that. I don't know if that person ended up shifting to violence, but what I can tell you, there's a lot of people like that who have been left behind by the United Corporations of America, have been left behind by this new Gilded Age, that are working longer hours for less pay and crappier benefits, who are deathly afraid that their plant is the next to close and go to another country, or they used to make a decent living, but now they've had to downgrade to a lesser salary, or they're getting paid hourly with crappy benefits. I can understand why those people, you get so desperate and you get so angry and you get so bitter. Sometimes that does breed into a violent mentality. I'm not condoning it. I'm just explaining. I understand sometimes why people shift to that. There's a lot of people that stormed the Capitol on January 6th. They're not necessarily terrible people. I don't condone what they did, but a lot of those people have been left behind, and they got sucked in by a phony populist. And Tina Desiree Berg, who does reporting for us sometimes, she was on me this week, and she said, because she covers the alt-right a lot, she's covered the QAnon conspiracy movement, she's covered white supremacy, and she has said, yeah, a lot of these people, I understand it. I don't agree with what they're doing, but I understand it. They've been left behind. And when you're left behind and you don't have an alternative to, right-wingism and authoritarianism, it's easy to get sucked in by that. But I don't, to answer your question or your comment, the government inspires more violence against politicians and donors. I don't think the answer is violence against them. I think the answer is to hit them where it really hurts. And believe it or not, to hit them where it really hurts isn't violence. To hit them where it really hurts is their wallet. And you don't need to be violent to hit them where it hurts. You would be really, really surprised how quickly things might turn if Amazon's quarterly profit start dipping significantly. If Elon Musk and Tesla's quarterly profits stop dipping significantly. If corporate banking, if they start losing money. If the fast food industry, who is some of the worst employers in terms of exploiting their workers, they start losing money. Wouldn't require any violence, but if we could actually organize in this country, call it a general strike, call it whatever you want, to actually take organized economic actions, to me, you could start seeing significant change. And that is totally separate from voting and electoral politics. I know a lot of people are saying to hell with electoral politics. I don't think it's either or. I don't think you should just give up on electoral politics completely. I think we need to hold our politicians accountable. Frankly, the squad is not doing what they should be doing. Bernie, I appreciate everything he has done for the movement, but I don't think he's beyond criticism. I think he's made some missteps. I don't think he's a fraud or a sellout. I totally reject that kind of talk. I think that's absurd. And obviously Jimmy and others have said that stuff. You don't have to, it's not about worshiping politicians, but you don't just throw the baby out with the bathwater. You have to respect and appreciate everything Bernie has done. but he's not beyond criticism. And I've certainly criticized him. But I don't think we should be violent. I think we should organize. And frankly, look at what these workers are doing at Starbucks, Amazon workers, John Deere workers, Kroger workers, the Alabama coal miners, the Frito-Lay workers, Nabisco workers. If they could organize for economic actions, we all can. They've had the benefit because they have unions. So them being unionized has given them the foundation to strike. They get, their unions, through their dues to their unions, they get strike pay. And in a lot of cases, some type of health care if their employer cuts their health care. But we together, we can't just wait on Bernie Sanders anymore or the squad. We together should look at organizing. And organizing is a term, sometimes people don't know what it means. But in your community, I promise, if you look hard enough, there are mutual aid groups. There are rent strike groups. There are groups fighting in terms of climate. There are groups fighting in terms of healthcare. There are groups fighting and going to every city council meeting. Organize and come up with ways, even if it's a couple hundred people at a time taking an economic action not to use a certain business, to boycott a certain bank. That stuff can build up. It can build. And I think we're not far away from that. I'm going to read some more super chats, but I want to show another comment or two. Colin, can we read from Marcia Liedo? Where was this 6 months ago? So this was a comment under a video I did where I was criticizing Bernie because Bernie did a floor speech yesterday. And keep those super chats coming. I'll read them. Bernie did a floor speech yesterday calling out Manchin. And I said, this is great. I like this tone now going after Manchin and Sinema. But why weren't you doing this 6 months ago? So Marta said, where was this 6 months ago? He was giving it a chance as Biden was saying, we will get this done. He was being patient and letting it run its course. If he had started with this 6 months ago, would he lose Biden's favor and risk anything happening? Of course, yes. Marta, I love you. Not trying to get in a fight with you, but I think that's wrong. So if you recall, and again, I don't have Bernie derangement syndrome. I respect Bernie. I still have his coffee mug upstairs. So I'm not like he's a sellout. He's a fraud. I'm not like worshiping him either. But it was Bernie Sanders, Marta, who said, get rid of Trump and we fight Biden on day one. That's what Bernie said. Get rid of Trump and we fight Biden on day one. Well, I could understand giving Biden a little bit of a honeymoon period. You don't want to go with pitchforks to the Oval Office right away. But the bottom line is, pretty much right away, Biden preemptively surrendered on the very few policies he was proposing. He ran on a $15 minimum wage. He surrendered on that right away, claiming that we can't do it because an unelected parliamentarian. So I disagree with you, Marta, that no, Bernie was playing it smart. He had to keep quiet and be in Biden's favor. No. As soon as Biden started moonwalking away, without any pressure, by the way, he moonwalked away from a $15 minimum wage with zero pressure. He just used an unelected parliamentarian as an excuse. As soon as Biden moonwalked away from $15 minimum wage, as soon as Biden moonwalked away from a public option, which you never hear about anymore, as soon as Biden bastardized and evolved $2,000 check, oh, we're going to give you a $1,400 check. As soon as Biden, he said $10,000 in student loan cancellation. Do we have that? He should have been going scorched earth. Remember, it was Bernie Sanders who said, if I became president, you think the first thing I'm going to do is meet with Mitch McConnell and compromise? No. I'm going to tell Mitch McConnell, look outside the window at my army. Look at my army outside the window, Mitch. Well, of course, he didn't become president because it was rigged against him 2 elections in a row. But what happened to that mindset? Because at a certain point, Bernie Sanders, you're either very naive or you just, for whatever reason, not willing to fight. To me, it was abundantly clear pretty much within a month or two that Biden was not going to fulfill or even fight for any of his promises. And at that point, he should have gone scorched earth. He should have enlisted and activated the elected progressives in the House to go scorched earth with him. There was a progressive base at that point that wasn't as deflated as it is now, that was ready and willing to fight with you. I'm not saying violently, but to be activated and fight along with Bernie against Biden and the Democrats, abandoning the $15 minimum wage is a compromise. That's not even a living wage, a $15 minimum wage. And by the way, remember, $15 minimum wage, if that was instituted today, it's phased in over years. You wouldn't actually get $15 minimum wage right away if it was implemented federally. But you can't really win. Like for me, you can't really, from my point of view, you can't really win because on one end, if you at all critique Bernie, there are some people that cannot take that at all and think you're being unfair. To those people, listen, I respect Bernie. I appreciate the fact that he's brought millions of people into the political process. Do I think the current state of the country is completely Bernie Sanders' fault? Of course not. Of course not. But at the same time, you can't say, no, thou shalt not critique or ever criticize Bernie. I mean, that's ridiculous. You can't hero worship people. Even if he is a hero of you, sometimes our heroes also make mistakes. And then there's people who say, you're not going hard enough. You're a Bernie bro. You can't really please everyone, I've learned. I just keep it real. I just keep it real. But I think Bernie Sanders, I disagree with the person who made that comment. Listen, he should have been going scorched earth against Biden 7-8 months ago. He should have been going scorched earth against Biden. He should have been going scorched earth against Manchin, against Sinema. I remember I had Ro Khanna on Status Coup, and I appreciate Ro Khanna coming on. He's one of the only elected progressives that is willing to go on shows, so he deserves credit for that. But at the same time, I asked them, why aren't you guys in West Virginia holding massive rallies? Like, why aren't you going after Manchin? Why aren't you pointing out that he's literally making millions and millions of dollars from a coal company he owns while sabotaging climate legislation that we desperately need to save our planet? Why aren't you guys pointing out his donors? Why aren't you pointing out that his daughter, when she was the CEO of Mylan, a pharmaceutical company, illegally jacked up the price of EpiPens, which led to people rationing insulin and dying? So, I even see it in the chat. Some people don't like it. Some people, if you dare critique Bernie, they think it's unfair. Listen, it's not all on Bernie, but at the end of the day, if he has decided to stay in office, he's still one of the top leaders in office of the progressive movement. And as such, people are looking to Bernie and other elected progressives for direction, for that bat signal to fight. I think if Bernie Sanders and the squad and others tomorrow held a rally calling out Manchin, Sinema, calling on Biden to do more to actually pressure them, I still think they'd get 10 to 20,000 people. The reason people fall into kind of this nihilist mindset, the reason people kind of fall into, I'm done with electoral politics, this and that, is when they don't see that fighting. And of course, Bernie, others, they have to play the game a little bit. You have to compromise here and there because we don't have power. We don't have the White House right now or majorities in Congress in terms of progressives. But also, so we can't, I'm not saying go down and burn down the village all the time, but there are times you have to say, if you're Bernie, Biden has shown you who he is. He has not followed through on any of his promises to you. He has not fought at all Manchin and Sinema. Do you think Lyndon B. Johnson do you think Lyndon B. Johnson, who made a lot of terrible mistakes, namely doubling down on Vietnam, do you think Lyndon B. Johnson would allow Joe Manchin or Kirsten Sinema to completely sabotage his entire presidency? Of course not. He would fight them. He would publicly tar and feather them. He would privately, probably, if it were Joe Manchin, threaten Department of Justice action against his daughter for her illegal acts. So that's that. Let me read some more super chats. Presents, $5. Is it too cynical to say that Biden, Manchin, Sinema, even Jayapal never intended to pass BBB, let alone debt forgiveness, climate action, etc.? Let me take a sip before I answer. I don't think it's too cynical to say that Biden, Manchin, Sinema never intended to pass Build Back Better in the bigger package, the 3.5 trillion package. Jayapal, do I think Jayapal genuinely wanted to pass it? I do. I think she genuinely wanted to pass it, but I don't think I think she is similar to what I just described about Bernie. I don't think she's cutthroat enough. I don't think she's politically savvy enough. I think people like Jayapal, people like Ro Khanna, Jamal Bowman, to a lesser extent, Jamal Bowman, who, by the way, just was arrested the other day protesting, I believe. But I don't think I think when the media starts turning on them like aggressively, look at what happened, folks. Congresswoman Jayapal, Congressman Ro Khanna, the Progressive Caucus, they held firm. They refused to vote for the bipartisan infrastructure deal without the bigger 3.5 trillion Build Back Better plan. But then when Terry McAuliffe lost the governor's race in Virginia, because it's Terry McAuliffe, because they didn't run on anything other than Trump and trying to connect Glenn Youngkin, who's now the Virginia governor, with Trump, he didn't actually propose anything, populist or economic relief. He said some stupid things about schools. When Terry McAuliffe lost and Glenn Youngkin won in Virginia, and then when the governor's race in New Jersey was a lot closer than people thought, what happened? The media started increasing the pressure on progressives, blaming Terry McAuliffe's loss, not on Terry McAuliffe, not on neoliberalism, not actually running on anything other than Trump, but that these progressives didn't vote for the bipartisan infrastructure deal, even though polling showed that played zero part in Terry McAuliffe losing. But for a week or so after the Virginia governor's race, oh boy, the media and the Democrats, they started ratcheting up the pressure on Jayapal and the progressives. They started blaming them. And what do you know? The progressives then folded. So I think Pramila Jayapal, do I think she wanted to pass Build Back Better? I do. But I don't think she is a cutthroat enough leader. And I don't think she and others are willing to absorb media scorn long enough to hold firm. So that's what I believe. Let me read another one. Thank you for we got a $2 tip on Rockfin, so thank you. Exhausted 11 $9.99 in the super chat. Thanks so much. Mary Taylor $19.99. Keep up the great work at Status Coup. Thank you, Mary. I really appreciate your support. Trebre Wag tip $2. Fascinating idea, collaborating with other progressives. I've been saying this for years. I hate to borrow from Hillary Clinton, but I do think we're stronger together. I really do. I mean, it just makes sense. I mean, look at the current system. Everybody has their own shows and channels. And in a lot of cases, people are going live at the same exact time as one another. In a lot of cases, people are posting similar content to each other at similar times. And to me, it just, in a lot of cases, cannibalizes each other. Because at the end of the day, viewers, you guys only have so much time. You also only have so much funds that you could provide to fund various channels. So let's say the average person watching, maybe you support 2 or 3 independent media channels, whatever your channel is. I hope you support Status Coup. Hint, hint, statuscoup.com/join. Become a member for $5 a month. That helps us that's the only way we could fund the on-the-ground reporting that we have done for 4 years, and we're going to be doing a lot more of this year. I haven't been traveling as much recently because, to tell you the truth, I'm just being honest. I don't want to go out in this latest COVID surge. I don't want to get COVID for a second time. So I felt, you know what, if I could lay low for a few weeks, just do more shows, still interview people. I just did an interview with somebody on the student debt crisis. I just did a separate interview with an indigenous person about Biden's broken promises to Native Americans. So I'm still covering a lot of things that we always cover. I just haven't been in the field because I just want to wait till cases go down and it's less of a petri dish around the country. So that's just my personal decision. Hopefully you guys could wait a little bit. We did just break a massive Flint story. So even though we're not on the ground at the moment, we did just break that massive Flint story that I'm really proud of. But I just think it makes a lot of sense because honestly, at the end of the day, I think the progressives online in the last year, there's been this kind of toxic thing where, like, if we don't all agree and we're all not in lockstep over every little thing and we're all not breathing the same volume of fire as each other, then this one's not really a leftist and this one's not really a progressive and this one's a sellout. And honestly, folks, to me, we're not going to get anywhere by just fighting and it makes good internet. It's clicky, Jimmy was fighting with TYT for weeks or months, whatever. But where does that actually get us? This whole game of Survivor, who's the last real progressive standing? It's fucking stupid and counterproductive, in my opinion. I don't think we all need to agree on every little thing. I don't think we all need to be on the same page on every little thing. I think some of us could feel a certain way about Bernie, and some of us could feel a different way about Bernie. Some of us could feel a way about the squad, and some of us could feel a different way. But when did it become the bar that progressives, we need to be in lockstep on all things? If you want to be on lockstep on all things and you want to have your views validated 1000% of the time, that's more of the mentality of the right wing, in my opinion. That's more of a Fox News viewer who, if they're not being fed, right wing insanity constantly, that they turn the channel. I even see it now, people, I'm unsubscribing because I don't agree with you. This is not a pathway to anything productive. If you only want to consume content that validates your pre-existing opinion 24/7, I would argue you're not interested in being informed. You're interested in going to a pep rally. And we also need to stop. Salgado, if I needed you to agree with me, I wouldn't love your journalism, right? So I don't agree with everything Brianna Joy Gray says or Crystal Ball says or anybody says. And I'm sure they don't agree with everything I say. So who fucking cares? I mean, there's levels, if I felt that individuals were pushing out dangerous misinformation, or I felt they did not have good motives, or that they were just not people that share the same values as me, yeah, I probably would hesitate to partner with them. But if all things are equal and we generally, believe similar things, maybe we don't agree on every single topic, but we have the same view on what needs to happen and we have the same end goal in mind, then who gives a damn if we agree completely on the topic of the squad or Bernie or what? It's just, people need to get out of this tribalism and this mindset. It's not productive. It's not productive. So yes, fascinating idea, collaborating with other progressives. I think it would be a great thing. And honestly, listen, I don't know what it would be. I don't know if it would be, a flat rate thing for a network where people pay $10 to $15 a month for everybody. And, there's other ways where each individual channel could make separate additional money in separate ways. I don't know what it would look like. I don't want to pretend that I'm running this thing or I'm leading the charge. But what I do know, I believe people would support at a flat rate to have a network of however many people, consistent programming, collaboration. I think that could be an extremely powerful thing. I think it could be an extremely successful thing financially for all of us, because we all need to eat, obviously. And I think, honestly, it could find funding from people with money. I do believe that. Let me read some more super chats. Keep it coming. We're going to wrap up soon, but happy hour is not over. So please partake. Even if it's not whiskey, you could do tea, coffee, water, candies, medicinal medicine, cannabis, kombucha, whatever's your flavor. Whatever's your flavor. Das Bosch Fleisch, €4.99. I would pay money to see you in a White House press conference. I wonder what you would ask Jen Psaki first. Oh, God. I don't know if they'd ever allow me in the White House press room, but let me tell you something. That press conference the other day, what was it? 2 hours? What an abomination. What an abomination. First of all, there was no mention of the fact the day before that press conference, there was 1.2 million cases of coronavirus in this country, which is probably an undercount. It's probably more than that. There was almost 3,000 deaths in this country from coronavirus. Almost 3,000 deaths the day before that press conference that Biden did. Not a question, not a mention. Not one question or mention about the explosion of worker strikes and union drives in this country. Not a mention. Not a question. Not a question about the climate catastrophe. So you better damn well believe if I was in there, there would be some questions asked that you won't get heard. You will not get questions like what I would ask from other reporters. I would also ask about Flint, which is still an ongoing disaster, which we broke a story on this week. Nas, $10. Bernie and the progressives are allowed in Senate and Congress to bring in the Democratic votes. They have no power. You need third parties somehow. Corporations are too powerful. Bernie and the progressives are allowed in Senate and Congress to bring in the Democratic votes. They have no power. You need third parties somehow. Corporations are too powerful. I believe corporations, I agree, corporations are too powerful. I don't necessarily think Bernie and the progressives are bringing in the votes for Democrats. If you actually looked at the 2020 election, Biden actually won. I mean, obviously he won overwhelmingly in the popular vote. Yes, sorry, he won to those still pushing this nonsense. He did win, but he actually won. If you look at the data in the Electoral College, he won because he won more black voters than Hillary Clinton won in 2016. So Biden had more black voters come out for him in Atlanta, which is why he won Georgia, which Democrats had not won in a long time. He had more black voters come out in Detroit, which helped him win Michigan. And he had more black voters come out in Milwaukee, which helped him win Wisconsin. So that is why he won. And that had nothing to do with Bernie or the squad. Stacey Abrams organized a lot more African-American voters to come out in Georgia. I mean, she's not my cup of tea politically. She's more neoliberal, but she did organize a lot of black voters to come out for Biden in Georgia. Rashida Tlaib actually did a lot of organizing to get black voters to come out in Detroit. And again, in Milwaukee, a lot more black voters come out. So compared to Hillary Clinton, Biden had more black voters come out than Hillary Clinton in 2016. So I don't know necessarily if Bernie and AOC and them they're bringing in votes enough for Democrats to win. I'm not sure I agree with that. Sybil Proxy, $5. What should we call this new collective news organization? Oh, my God. You want me to come up with a name? I'm going to need to drink more. Colin, do you have the sound effect? Colin must be in the bathroom. Yeah. The name, I'd have to really think on that. It took us a long time to come up with the name Status Coup. And by the way, when we came up with Status Coup in 2018, I did not know. I wish I would have known at that time. I did not know that there was going to be a literal coup attempt in 2021. So that has been a little difficult because, to be honest with you, for people that don't know Status Coup, when they first see us, I have had people sometimes confused, thinking, wait a minute, are you like, what are you guys? Are you like with the January 6th people? So sometimes people get confused because they see the term coup and think that somehow we might be, in league with the 1-6ers. We're not. The Status Coup, why we came up with the name, is the idea that we need a journalistic coup d'etat in this country, a peaceful journalistic coup d'etat of the status quo. So it was kind of a play off the status quo, Status Coup. So that's the idea behind Status Coup. But I don't have an answer for you right now. What should we call this new collective news organization? I don't know. I don't have an answer. I'll spend the weekend thinking about it. Promise. Spiral Dynamics, $9.99. Cheers. Are we heading to totalitarian nationalism if Democrats keep trying to be bipartisan? I don't know about totalitarian nationalism. I've seen, while I'm on the ground, I've seen fascism in this country, namely at Standing Rock. But I haven't. Hold on. I haven't. Standing Rock, other places. I've literally seen the merger of corporate America with the government. Look at what happened in Standing Rock. I was freezing my tushy for months. Literally, you had the police funded by us there protecting an oil company. That's fascism. There's different forms of fascism. That's corporate fascism. Do I think that we're headed to totalitarian nationalism if the Democrats keep trying to be bipartisan? I don't think we're headed towards totalitarian nationalism if the Democrats keep trying to be bipartisan. I think we're headed to a goddamn Reagan Revolution 2.0 if the Democrats don't actually start doing what they're capable of doing. To me, the problem isn't that Democrats are trying to be bipartisan. Problem is Democrats will not do what they are currently capable of doing, specifically Biden with executive action, because the donors won't let them. Because the donors will not let them. We live in the United Corporations of America, folks. I don't have the flag up there for no reason. We live in the United Corporations of America. And in the United Corporations of America, not just Democrats, Republicans too, it's kind of theater. They will do whatever, they will go up to whatever line that the donors will allow them to do. That's why, in my opinion, during a pandemic, we did not see monthly UBI because the donors do not want to open that Pandora's box. They do not want to provide any form of UBI, consistent welfare, consistent aid from the government, because then the whole lie of how you're going to pay for it, that bubble gets burst. Because of course we could pay for it. Modern monetary theory, we print money out of our ass for war in Afghanistan, Iraq, and everything else we do. We have the money for all these things. It's theater. I have Steve Grumbine from Real Progressives on every Tuesday. Check out Real Progressives. Real Progress in Action is their YouTube channel. He talks about modern monetary theory all the time. We have the money for all this. So right now, Democrats, they have the money. This notion that Biden, that Manchin is saying, well, how are we going to pay for it in the debt? It's bullshit. And Biden can pass executive action right now on climate, on healthcare, on marijuana, on monopolies in this country. He's choosing not to because the donors do not want it. Because if they give even a little cent of relief, if they give even a little couple inches of relief to the working class, to the worker bees, we might demand a lot more. That's what's going on. Nick Coletti, $4.99. Love what you do and how you always speak your mind. Thank you, Nick. I'm not gonna lie, it's exhausting sometimes. It's hard to keep the content going every day. We try to do live streams 4 or 5 times a week while I'm doing investigative reporting on the side, but we try our best. We're hoping if we could grow, statuscoup.com/join, become a member for as low as $5 a month. Do you know $5 a month comes out to 16 cents a day? Yes. So if you become a member to Status Coup, your membership for $5 a month, that's 16 cents a day, will not only help us fund our on-the-ground reporting, and if you go to the homepage of this YouTube channel, you'll see we have a 10-minute montage from our work in 2021. We were all over this country funded by you. We don't have any money from the big banks, no money from the fossil fuckers, no money from big real estate, no money from big pharma, no money from military industrial complex, no money from any of them. Our money is from you. So if you become a member, statuscoup.com/join, statuscoup.com/join, you can help support for 16 cents a day, reporting on the ground in Flint, reporting on the ground at Amazon's warehouse as they're trying to unionize, reporting on the ground from picket lines where workers are striking. We covered the John Deere strikes. Reporting on the ground from elections. We covered India Walton's campaign in Buffalo in October. She unfortunately lost. Reporting on the ground. We went to Seattle 2 years ago to cover the exploding homelessness brought to you by Amazon and Jeff Bezos. While we were there, we interviewed Shama Sawant, a socialist hero. We went down to Dallas to cover the brutal murder of Botham John, a 26-year-old black man who was murdered in his apartment by a white police officer who just went to the wrong apartment. We went down to Virginia to cover the environmental fight against the Mountain Valley Pipeline, which is literally a natural gas pipeline being put underneath the Appalachian Trail, the steepest slopes in the country. I went to Detroit and Michigan and parts of Ohio in 2019 to cover General Motors laying off 15,000 workers after they got a $51 billion federal bailout. I was the only journalist there covering these layoffs. In America, I guess 15,000 workers getting laid off by a greedy General Motors, not a story. I have been to Flint. Yes, I've counted 18 times since 2016. To be fair, about 9 or 10 of those were while I was with the Young Turks. The rest have been funded by you, Status Coup members. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. We've been to so many places funded by you. And to tell you the truth, a lot of these trips, we've lost money. Because if you don't know, these trips, they cost anywhere between $3,000 to $5,000 just to go. I'll give you an example. Over the summer, we did a trip called The Other Pandemic. We started in Pennsylvania, then we drove to Ohio, then we drove to Louisville, Kentucky, and then we drove to West Virginia. So that was 4 states, multiple cities in 2 weeks. It was myself, at the time, Jen, a camera person. It cost us $7,000 for 2 weeks between gas, hotels, equipment that we had to get last minute, food for 3 people. It costs a lot of money. Just the hotels for 2 weeks cost a lot of money. And we're not staying at the Ritz. But it's so important to actually go out there and give the microphone to the people. So that's why we ask you to become a member. And by the way, as a member, not only are you supporting us, but we also do monthly members calls. So next week we're having our members call with our members. So that's through Zoom. So if you're a member and a patron, by the way, we started Status Coup with a Patreon, then we shifted away from Patreon to trying to get people to sign up through our website. So we prefer, if you were a new sign up, to sign up at statuscoup.com/join. That way you're a member through our website. So we have your information rather than a third party like Patron. If you're already a patron, that's cool. Patrons get access to our monthly members call also, as well as our behind the scenes videos that we do. So hope you'll sign up as a member. Again, $5 a month comes out to 16 cents a day. We do have higher levels than $5 a month, but you can become a member for just $5 a month. Let me read some other super chats. Nas, $5. I just noticed I was unsubscribed from your channel. I never unsubscribed. This is nuts. This one network idea is pretty good. Nas, can I tell you how many people have told me I was unsubscribed from your channel and I never unsubscribed? How many people have told me? I clicked the bell for all notifications. So if you're watching, click that bell next to the subscribe, click on all notifications, But I've had people tell me that they clicked the bell for all notifications, but they look back and that bell was unclicked for some strange reason. I see all the time people telling me I'm subscribed, but I rarely see your video. I rarely see your videos in my feed. So you're not alone. There's some really, I ain't a conspiracy theorist, but at this point, it seems like YouTube has a list and we're on it. Let me repeat. YouTube has a list and we're on it. That's the most charitable way of saying it. But yes, this one network idea, I think is a good idea. I agree. Cord, $20. Group a show sounds a bit like TYT. Any chance you'd collab with them again? Group a shows sound a bit like TYT. Any chance you'd collab with them again? I don't think I would collaborate with TYT. No, not because of ego, but for other reasons that I'm not going to get into. I mean, never say never. If let's say, for argument's sake, that there was 10 outlets that wanted to get together for a network and TYT wanted to be involved, am I going to say no because TYT's involved? Probably not. Would I ever directly collaborate with TYT? No, I wouldn't. I'm not going to get into it's all at this point water under the bridge. But in a one-on-one type of collaboration, I would not collaborate with them. But if to get a network off the ground with the voices we're talking about, if TYT was a part of it, would I say no? No, I wouldn't. Because again, this is going to require egos being put aside. We have to look at the big picture. So not everybody needs to love one another. You might even dislike some of the people. But if the bigger picture is let's get an organized, progressive, independent media network for the working class, then you have to put egos aside. But specifically, would I one-on-one collaborate with TYT? No, I wouldn't. Colin, Nas, $5. Disagree, Jordan. Biden got more votes because the alternative was Trump. They were anti-Trump votes. When did I say people voted because they were in love with Biden? I said more black voters came out. That is true. If you look at the data, more black voters came out in Georgia, specifically Atlanta. More black voters came out in Detroit, more black voters came out in Michigan, specifically Detroit, and more black voters came out in Wisconsin, specifically Milwaukee. I never said they came out because they love Joe Biden. No, of course not. They came out because they wanted to get rid of Trump. I mean, polling showed that the support specifically for Biden, like loving Biden, was very low. So yeah, no, I didn't say that they came out for Biden. Okay, let me repeat. They came out for Biden. Technically, they pulled the lever for Biden, but they did not come out because they were in love with Joe Biden. So that is a good correction. They did not come out because of their groundswell of support for Joe Biden. No. Let me take another swig of this happy hour before we go. Salgado, $2. Does a network exist you might join? Rev Blackout. I don't mean this I don't mean this to be a jerk. I don't know what Rev Blackout is. I don't mean it to be negative. I've never heard of it. So if you have information on that, feel free to email it. info@statuscoup.com. info@statuscoup.com. Would love to hear more about Rev Blackout. Lori Hoff, $19.99. Thank you, Lori. That's really nice. Appreciate it. Our Hands Built Everything, $4.99. Thank you. I appreciate that. Our Hands Built Everything. Guy Giberson, $19.99. Hey, Jordan, I'm from Flint, and I think it was Ron Fonger a few weeks ago reporting that the Michigan Attorney General was slammed by the court in the criminal case on the issue of privilege. Maybe Nessel did that on purpose to tank the prosecution. Well, Guy, and thank you for the 1999. That's really kind of you. I'm not a big fan of Ron Fonger. Maybe I'll do a members video on that. Hint, hint, sign up, statuscoup.com/join, become a member for as low as $5 a month. Maybe I'll do a little video on Ron Fonger, because in my view, Ron Fonger is a major part of the problem in terms of the truth about the Flint water crisis. Let me ask you a question. Guy. How is it that the Flint Journal, so that would be the hometown paper of Flint, right? How is it that the Flint Journal has not reported anything on 2020? I broke a story in Vice News, that the governor's top advisor, his right-hand man, was going around offering payoffs to sick Flint residents to keep them quiet. Why didn't the Flint Journal report on that? Ron Fonger is the Flint Journal's reporter on the Flint water crisis. How come Ron Fonger didn't cover that? How is it that when I broke in The Intercept in January 2020, that prosecutors had obtained Governor Snyder's phone calls, and that they concluded that Governor Snyder had learned about the toxic water 16 months earlier than he notified Flint residents, and 16 months earlier than he told the public? 16 months earlier than he notified Flint residents, and 16 months earlier than he testified to Congress, i.e. perjury. Perjury, a crime, I think, still. Is that a crime still in America? How come Ron Fonger in the Flint Journal didn't report that? I sent it to them many times. I sent a few strongly worded emails to Ron Fonger. They still didn't cover it. How is it that in, I think it was May or June of 2021, I broke a story in The Intercept on the governor of Michigan, Rick Snyder, his top officials, that their phones were erased shortly before the launch of the Flint water criminal investigation. Erased. Why is it that Ron Fonger did not cover that? Their phones were wiped before the launch of the criminal investigation. Text messages were missing for the entire period. So state officials, the top officials, their text messages were mysteriously off their phone, gone from the period Flint used the Flint River. I wonder why the Flint Journal and Ron Fonger didn't cover it. By the way, it wasn't just the Flint Journal that didn't cover it. The Detroit Free Press, which is the biggest newspaper in Michigan, they buried it. The Detroit News, a paper in Michigan, buried it. Flint Journal has never covered it. So when we talk about corporate media, we're not just talking about CNN and MSNBC. Local media is just as bad. They do not cover these things, and in my view, they are part in covering them up. And this is a massive disservice to the people of Flint. This is a massive disservice to the people of Flint. Because I can't tell you how frustrating it is for me as a journalist when I go to Flint and I interview a resident that I've never met before. They don't know about the stories I broke because they've never seen it in their local media. Outrageous. But to answer your question, yes, Attorney General Dana Nessel and her team, apparently they failed to use a taint team. So a taint team is basically independent people who are not part of a criminal investigation. They go through all of the documents that a criminal investigation has obtained to make sure that there's no documents that are attorney-client privilege, meaning that the criminal investigation doesn't have any documents that they should not have, that are private, confidential communications between the attorney and the client. the Attorney General of Michigan, who is going on MSNBC all the time right now, and basically MSNBC is showering her with love. The Attorney General of Michigan, her team did not use a taint team. And as such, Governor Snyder and other defendants might get off with that technicality. Let me read a couple more super chats before I go. Gabe Newell, 999. Hi, Jordan. What are your thoughts on the prospect of doing on-the-ground international reporting? Oh, boy. It's hard enough to afford on-the-ground domestic reporting. There would be no way. I'm going to be honest with you, Gabe. There would be no way for me or to hire others to do on-the-ground international reporting if I didn't have larger funding. I mean, that's just the truth. It's hard enough to fund the on-the-ground domestic in this country reporting, let alone independent international. So hint, sign up. StatusCoup.com/join. StatusCoup.com/join. Help us grow here. And if we can grow here, who knows? Maybe we could hire freelancers in other countries. I would love that because, I'm not, my passion is for stuff here, but of course we'd love to cover stuff in other countries too, for sure, if we could afford it. But right now, what are your thoughts on the prospect of on-the-ground international reporting? That's incredibly expensive. Like, it's incredibly expensive to do it domestically. I was telling you, per trip for myself, a cameraman typically costs, you're talking on the cheap end, $3,000 for a week. On the more expensive end, $5-6 grand for 2 weeks. So you're talking internationally. We don't have the money for that at this point. Mad Ocelit God, $5. I urge you or an ally to platform Edgar Cohn soon. His health is failing, and he should be recognized by the left while he's still here. Time Banks. Could you email me? Because I don't mean any disrespect. I'm not familiar with Edgar Cohn, so I'd love to know more on who Edgar Cohn is. But I'm sorry to hear his health is failing, and I would love to learn more about who he is. And maybe we could have him on. John Walter, 199. What about means.tv for the collective? I have reached out to Means TV in the past. Reached out to them, hoping that they would air our documentary. Unfortunately, after we originally talked, I didn't hear back from them. So I don't particularly know what happened in that communication, but I did reach out. We did speak. This is probably 2 years ago about a documentary we did in Flint, and unfortunately, I didn't hear back from them. So I would love to collaborate with Means TV for sure. Chris Garrett, $5. Thank you, Chris, who's one of the OGs of Status Coup. Status Coup has had good journalism and appearances this week. Wish Flint got more traction, but that may still come. Keep us proud. Thank you, Chris. Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, it's one of my, forget journalism for a second, taking off my journalism hat. And let me put my hat on for this. Taking off my journalism hat, even though I just put the hat on. Yeah, it's incredibly disheartening sometimes because I don't believe it or not, this is not about me. I mean, I like being on air. I like having my opinions heard. I like my reporting being seen. But for me, it's really disheartening because, you get to a point where for certain types of stories like Flint, you feel a sense of responsibility. You feel a sense of responsibility to a community like Flint. And, I've been one of the few reporters that has stayed on the Flint water crisis. So residents really reach out to me a lot and will, have grown to depend on me to cover it. And I don't mean that. I don't mean that in like an arrogant way, like I'm so special. I don't mean that at all. But sometimes, you feel like you're failing because you're breaking stories, but you're not getting traction on them, and the national media is ignoring it. and the Michigan media is ignoring it. And, that can be hard. It gets disheartening when you're just beating the drum constantly, and it doesn't seem at the time to be making a difference. But regardless, you just got to keep trying, because that's what life's about. It's, you can't give up, even if you're not, breaking Watergate that's getting picked up all over the place and becoming a national thing. You can't give up, because if you give up, then the powerful people that poison the city, that's what they want. They want people like me to give up. They want the people of Flint to give up. And I'm not going to give them that satisfaction. So I think that's a great place to end. It's been a great week for Status Coup. Again, I want to thank Rising with the Hill for having me on. I want to thank Brianna Joy Gray for having me on. I really appreciate it. I went on with the Ring of Fire with Farron Cousins. I think that's airing next week, so I appreciate him having me on. I went on a couple radio shows. I went on with Charlie LaDuff today. I'm going on with Mike from the Humanist Report next week about this story, so I appreciate him. I believe I'm going on with Michael Moore on his podcast next week, so I'm grateful for that. I would still love to go on Breaking Points. I reached out to Crystal, so I'd love to hear back on that. Even if they can't have me on, at least covering the story. I would love to go on with Katie Halper, Tim Black, whomever. I would go on with pretty much anyone right now, including the Young Turks, by the way, to get this story to a bigger audience. I would go on with just about anybody to get this story to a bigger audience. Because the truth is, in my view, we cannot allow the poisoning of an American city and then a massive cover-up of that poisoning. To me, this is the biggest government cover-up of the 21st century. You show me something bigger. A lot of people died in Flint. A lot of people are slowly dying in Flint. Okay? So this is a massive government cover-up on the state level of Michigan, on the federal level. I think the media is in on it. Wall Street was involved. If you read the story that we broke, it's at the top of my Twitter page. So go to @JordanChariton. If you haven't read the story, I'll put it in the super chat right now. If you read the story, you will see Wall Street is involved. Yeah, I'd go on Tucker Carlson about this story. I think Tucker Carlson is a conspiracy theorist, white supremacist. I'd go on his show to get this out to a massive audience. I might have a few words for him at the end, but I'd go on. My problem isn't necessarily going on Fox News and Tucker Carlson. It's that too many people are going on Tucker Carlson and Fox News and just being good little boys and girls. They should call out Tucker Carlson. He's not dog whistling. I mean, he's very clearly playing to some of the worst racist instincts in this country. But I would go on for this story for sure. I don't think it should be normalized. I don't care if it was 8 months ago or 8 years ago. We should not allow an American city being poisoned to be normalized. We should not allow the fact that 8 years later, there has been no one held accountable. Not one person is in jail. That should not be normalized. We should not allow the media to act like this is over, because it's not over. I've been there 18 times. I was there 6 months ago. There are residents still getting rashes from the water, still losing hair when they shower, and there are residents getting sicker all the time. And they do not have Medicare for all after being poisoned by their government. So I will stay on the story, even if one person reads it. I will stay on the story. And last gentle encouragement, please, if you support actual journalism, I very, very much would appreciate you guys supporting us as a member for $5 a month. $5 a month. 16 cents a day. Support our investigative reporting. Support our on-the-ground reporting. $5 a month has allowed us to go all over this country. Those microphones, New Hampshire, New York City, Cleveland, DC, Maryland, Virginia, West Virginia, Miami, Detroit, Flint, Chicago, Minneapolis, South Bend, Indiana, Louisville, Kentucky, Elizabeth City, North Carolina, Miami, Florida, Dallas, Texas, Los Angeles, California, Moorhead, Kentucky, Louisville, Kentucky, Las Vegas, Nevada, Reno, Nevada, Cleveland, Akron, Vancouver, Canada, Seattle, Washington, San Francisco, California, Las Vegas, Nevada. This is all through membership and a GoFundMe that we did. So please, if it's within your means, of course, if even $5 a month is not within your means, that's okay. We understand. We don't want to make anyone's situation more difficult. But if it is within your means, you know, there's a lot of people asking you for money, but what are they doing? We're actually investigating things. We're actually breaking major stories on important stories on forgotten communities. We're covering what the corporate media covers up. And we will be back on the ground covering important stories, but we need your help. So sign up, statuscoup.com/join. And as a reminder to folks, we will be having our members call. We will be having our members call next week. I don't know what day yet, but we will be having our members call next week. It's through Zoom. So if you're a member or a patron, you'll get the email link for our Zoom members call. We do it at 7 o'clock Eastern time, and we'll be doing that next week, probably later in the week next week. Thank you for watching. I really, really appreciate it. Have a great weekend. We'll see you back here on Monday. Take care.